Imagine stepping outside one morning and seeing a woman you barely know standing on your family ranch, clipboard in hand, acting like she owns the place. That's exactly how I met Patricia, the HOA president who thought she could seize my family's land like it was some community playground. She didn't just knock on the door and introduce herself politely. Oh no, she barged right past the front gate like she had every right to be there. I was sipping coffee on the porch, staring out at the wide acres my grandfather and father had worked for decades, when I saw her heels clicking against the gravel. Patricia strutted in, wearing a blazer far too formal for ranch dust, and snapped, "This property is now subject to HOA oversight. As president, I'll be handling the transition." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Transition, lady. This land has been in my family since before you were born. There's no HOA here." She smirked like she was schooling a child. "Your ranch borders the Willow Creek subdivision. Our HOA recently expanded jurisdiction. According to our charter, this land now falls under community management, which means you'll need to vacate the barn within 60 days. I laughed, but her icy stare didn't break. She wasn't joking. She actually thought a suburban HOA could muscle a working ranch off land that had been deeded to my family for generations. My father's words rang in my ears. Never let anyone put their boots on your land, unless you invited them. And here Patricia was, metaphorically stomping all over everything my family built. I walked her back toward the gate, keeping calm, though my hands were clenched into fists. Listen carefully. This ranch is private property. The only jurisdiction here is mine. Patricia's smile widened like a cat cornering prey. "Oh, we'll see about that. My lawyer will be in touch." Then she snapped a photo of the barn and stormed off, dust rising behind her heels. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just bluffing. She had a plan, and if I didn't fight back hard, she might just find a way to make life miserable. I didn't know it yet, but Patricia's arrogance would soon backfire spectacularly. Because once she tried dragging me to court, the judge wouldn't just dismiss her case, he'd laugh her out the door. The letter came 3 weeks later, a thick envelope stamped with the law office Patricia had boasted about. Inside, it was all legal jargon. But the message was clear. The Willow Creek HOA was asserting jurisdiction over my family ranch, and they were demanding I vacate certain structures for community development purposes. I set the papers down on the kitchen table, my blood boiling. My grandfather's hat still hung by the door. His hands built every fence post, dug every trench. And now some suburban HOA thought they could erase it all with a letter? I drove straight to the county clerk's office. The clerk, old Mr. Harris, had been in that chair since I was a kid. When I laid the documents on his desk, he pushed his glasses up and chuckled. "Son, an HOA doesn't have a say beyond its subdivision boundaries. Ranch land like yours? Completely separate." That gave me relief, but also resolve. Patricia wasn't just mistaken. She was trying to intimidate me. And if she was bold enough to send lawyers after me, I'd need someone stronger on my side. That's when I called in my cousin Rebecca. Sharp, no nonsense, and one of the best real estate attorneys in the state. She flipped through the papers with a smirk. They don't have a leg to stand on. But Patricia's making noise, and noise can cause trouble. We'll file a response, and if she pushes, we'll drag her into court. Trust me, this'll get entertaining. Entertaining for her, maybe. For me, it was personal. Every night after work, I'd walk the property, remembering stories Grandpa told me under the old oak tree, about how he bought the land with his first rodeo winnings, how he built the barn with his brothers, how he swore this ranch would stay in the family's hands forever. And now Patricia wanted to rewrite that history. She even had the nerve to show up again. This time, she parked her shiny SUV at the end of the gravel road and waved a stack of papers like victory flags. "You'll lose in court," she taunted. "And when you do, I'll turn that barn into a clubhouse. Imagine it. Wine tastings, community yoga. Such an upgrade." I stared her down. "This barn isn't for your parties. It's for cattle, hay, and a family legacy you'll never touch." She scoffed and drove off, dust cloud trailing behind her. But I knew then, Patricia was doubling down, and the fight was about to get a whole lot uglier. The court date came faster than I expected. Word had spread through town that Patricia, the HOA president, was trying to claim my ranch. Folks couldn't believe it. Most laughed at the absurdity. But I knew better. Patricia had money, connections, and a stubbornness that made her dangerous. On the morning of the hearing, I walked into the courthouse with Rebecca at my side. She carried a thick binder, brimming with deeds, tax records, and surveys dating back nearly a century. I carried nothing but my resolve. Patricia, meanwhile, strutted in with 2 lawyers trailing her like bodyguards. Her smile stretched wide when she spotted me, like she'd already won. "Better get used to packing boxes," she whispered as she passed. "That ranch will be mine by Christmas." Rebecca leaned in. "Ignore her. Judges love paper, not arrogance. And we've got plenty of paper." The hearing began. Patricia's lawyer stood tall, spouting off claims that the HOA's jurisdiction had been expanded to include adjacent properties for community growth. He painted a picture of my ranch as some neglected backlot standing in the way of suburban paradise. I nearly laughed out loud at the nonsense. Then it was Rebecca's turn. Calm, composed, she flipped open the binder and began laying out fact after fact. The original deed signed in my great-grandfather's name, tax receipts proving continuous ownership, county maps marking the subdivision line miles away from my barn. With each page, the judge's eyebrow climbed higher. Finally, Rebecca delivered the knockout punch, a signed letter from the county commissioner himself, confirming the HOA had zero authority over my land. The courtroom went silent. Patricia's smug grin faltered. The judge leaned back in his chair, chuckling softly. "Ms. Hendress," he said, addressing Patricia, "this court doesn't entertain fantasy claims. You and your HOA have no jurisdiction here whatsoever." He tapped his gavel lightly. "Case dismissed." The sound echoed like a shotgun blast. Patricia shot to her feet. "You can't dismiss me like that. This ranch belongs to the community." The judge actually laughed. "Ma'am, the only thing you belong to right now is a frivolous lawsuit warning. Push this further, and you'll find yourself paying his attorney's fees." Patricia's face turned crimson. She stormed out of the courtroom, her lawyers scrambling behind her. I exhaled for the first time all day. Rebecca nudged me with a grin. "Told you it'd be entertaining." But I knew Patricia wasn't finished. Someone that stubborn doesn't just give up. No, this fight wasn't over yet. For a while after court, I thought Patricia might finally back off. But with people like her, embarrassment only fuels the fire. A week later, she tried a different tactic. Flyers started popping up around town, plastered on notice boards and even slipped under doors. "Community Ranch Revival Project, coming soon." With glossy pictures of my barn turned into a fancy clubhouse. She was still trying to claim my land, just without the courtroom. I marched right into the HOA meeting that Saturday. The room was full of subdivision, residents sipping coffee and flipping through Patricia's plan. When she saw me walk in, her smile froze. "This is a private meeting," she snapped. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. "Private? On my land? Folks, Patricia's been selling you a dream she can't deliver. That barn she's promising you belongs to my family." The court already laughed her case out the door. Gasps filled the room. Some residents turned to Patricia with confusion. One older gentleman stood up and said, "Patricia, you told us the ranch was community property." She waved him off, flustered. "Technicalities, that's all. It will be ours soon enough." That was her mistake, because Rebecca had told me to record everything. I pulled out my phone and hit play. The judge's words rang out clearly. "This court doesn't entertain fantasy claims. The HOA has no jurisdiction." The room turned ice cold. People started murmuring, glaring at Patricia. She tried to spin it, but the damage was done. By the end of the night, the HOA board voted to remove her as president. The next morning, Patricia's SUV was gone from her driveway. Rumor had it she'd packed up and left Willow Creek entirely. Maybe the humiliation was too much. Maybe she was off hunting for her next victim. Either way, my ranch was safe. I walked the fence line at sunset, boots kicking up dust, heart lighter than it had been in months. The barn doors creaked open, and I stepped inside. Sunlight slanted across the hay bales, and I swore I could almost see my grandfather leaning against the post, smiling. "This place will always be ours," I whispered. And I meant it. Patricia thought she could rewrite history, erase generations of sweat and sacrifice with legal tricks and arrogance. But in the end, the truth held firm. My family's land wasn't just acres on a map. It was legacy, grit, and roots too deep for anyone to rip out. And when the court laughed her out the door, it wasn't just a victory for me. It was proof. Some things can't be stolen. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more wild HOA Karen tales every week. Your support helps keep these stories coming.